It's Wednesday night, and you know what that means. We're back live on the Big Mountain.
Welcome back to the Big Mountain for another live episode. JY, Steve, and I said to Steve about 2 days ago, this is going to be a smaller episode. Maybe we won't have too much to talk about. And I think our list of topics is the biggest it's ever been. And as I said on X, we have something for everyone, I do believe. We're going to start with some ACC, FSU, Clemson information. We did get, and I was able to review the Judge Bledsoe decision on the motion to dismiss or stay. We're going to briefly go over that today. We'll drop a full episode on that for Friday. Then we're going to go right into the Big Ten out-of-conference games. Steve is going to rank the top 10 out-of-conference games, or maybe not rank them, but he's going to have the top 10 in his mind out-of-conference games. Then we got to get into some media days because that is going on right now. A lot of good stuff happening. I have some items I want to talk about with the Mountain West. Before we get into our reveal that I've been pumping with our interview of an AD from the Mountain West, really good discussion we did yesterday. We'll drop it tomorrow. We're going to let you know who that is. And then at the end, we're going to go over the out-of-conference rankings that I did for the Mountain West. And then we want to have a discussion about that 64-team, four-conference draft episode that just dropped yesterday. I know we have one of our conference commissioners here, Bill, that college football guy. I do believe Steven is going to be joining us as well. And we just to have a conversation about maybe some afterthoughts here, what went right, what went wrong. I saw Bill making some comments about the rating. And you know what, Bill? I don't think we were wrong. I think our media guy was wrong. I'm going to be honest. I think he got it wrong. I agree with you. I was far too low in the West. A daggone East Coast bias. But we want to welcome JEH, Genetics, that college football guy, David Jorgensen, new to this, Eddie Williams, Big Mama, who am I missing? Clint Moses. And if anyone else is on, put a little hello on. We like to know who is with us on the Big Mountain here this evening. And yes, so Clint thought maybe we'd be live from the Bellagio Hotel.
Ooh.
I would love to be at the Bellagio right now.
Year.
Maybe in the future we can do that. I would love to go to these media. I would love to do anything with the Mountain West and Big Ten media days, all that kind of stuff. Not quite in the budget yet for us, but maybe someday, Clint, we can get there. Would love to be there. So let's start with the ACC, FSU, Clemson. I have something from FSU, something from, I can't get rid of her, A.G. Moody.
You said you weren't going to talk about
but
it.
I can't. She's like the...
you just can't quit her.
Can't say what I... Okay, we'll go with that. And then I have, of course, the big news from Clemson, which I'm only going to give a little tease about. Like I said, we'll do a standalone episode. And you may have some things that you want to talk about as well.
I definitely have some news that I want to talk about. Some Big Ten expansion, Florida State type news. David Jorgensen says he's hearing FSU to the SEC more and more. So we're going to talk about that after. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to share some things with you guys. For our War Chant folks, you may have already seen a little preview of this from Genetics today. I shared some information with him. I know he's been discussing it today along with some other things.
Okay.
But I want to let you go first.
Okay, well, let's get into the lawsuit stuff, and then we'll have some fun with maybe what you're hearing. And there's also, to that, there's a whole bunch of buzz around the Big 12 right now.
Yeah.
Because why not? That's fun to speculate, too. Let's just talk about everybody. Yeah. Hell, let's talk about FSU going to the FCS, because nobody's talking about that. Can we start that buzz?
Or maybe independent.
Maybe independent. Anyway, I'm being an asshole right now. So anyway, let's get into this. So FSU, we now know there's been a mutually agreed upon interim protective order for the ESPN media rights agreement. And I want to say mutually agreed upon. Both sides came to the judge, agreed upon this. That means FSU is going to get the unredacted full version of the media rights agreement. Again, they've already seen it. For anybody that says, oh, this is the first time, yada, yada, yada. No. They've already seen all of this. They could go see it anytime they wanted, but they will actually have a copy. I am interested to see what that means from FSU sunshine laws. I didn't read that interim protective order in detail, but we know there was some groundwork being laid with some of the judges as to what this means for sunshine laws and things like that. Just to be clear, this has nothing to do with the A.G. Moody writ of mandamus. This is the Judge Cooper case, and this is coming from Judge Cooper. None of this is a surprise. The surprise for me, though, is it took this damn long. Like, holy crap, I knew they were going to get it. We finally got over this freaking hurdle with it. So anything with that, Steve, before I go to A.G. Moody?
No, let's hear it.
A.G. Moody. So she filed a request for judicial notice for several items. And so the items that she's requesting here, or not requesting, the items that she supplied to the court here are the FSU Board of Trustees meeting minutes from December 22nd, 2023, the Clemson versus ACC case lawsuit in Pickens County, South Carolina, the Florida State Board of Trustees versus the ACC case in Leon County, Florida, the ACC versus the FSU Board of Trustee case in Mecklenburg, North Carolina, and several other amendments to these types of things, other responses and things that they've had along the way. These really are just meant to give notice to the court that these are indisputable facts in order to try and maybe speed up the process, or at least it's for convenience purposes. Hey, here, Judge, here's everything that you're going to need in this, at least from A.G. Moody's side. So nothing of real importance there other than, things that we've already seen and talked about. She's given it to the judge. So that's what that is. The last piece, the most important issue to talk about right now, Clemson and the motion to dismiss and stay. So I think it's important here. I see everybody, or not everybody, I see some people saying, oh, they were both denied. They denied everything. That's not really the case here. Not really. It's not the case. It was denied in part. The motion to dismiss was denied in part, and we get into that in details on the episode we'll put out on Friday. The motion to stay was fully denied by Judge Bledsoe in Mecklenburg. And the piece that I was interested in here really was that stay piece, Steve, because this was the second case filed in the Clemson lawsuit. Clemson kind of got their case in first the day before in South Carolina. How was Judge Bledsoe kind of view the priority side of this and things like that? We talk about this in the episode, but I'll give everybody that's on right now just a little flavor of kind of what's going on here. Mainly, his main weight here in this decision was the fact that there would not be a substantial injustice to Clemson if this case went on in Mecklenburg. Most importantly, the only court that would have jurisdiction over FSU, Clemson, and the ACC is the North Carolina court. He points out that the FSU court cannot bind Clemson in South Carolina, just as the Clemson action in South Carolina can't bind FSU in Florida. So he is saying, this isn't JY saying it, Steve, Bledsoe is saying the only court that has jurisdiction over all three of these entities is this court in North Carolina. He also states that this is where the contracts were made and should be governed under North Carolina law. So enough of that legal mumbo jumbo. I did want to start out with this. I know we have a lot of FSU followers. I'm not sure if any are on tonight, but I wanted to start out with FSU, and that leads us then into, of course, any thoughts or opinions on that, and into whatever you got for us here. There's little nuggets you might be throwing out.
So quick thoughts on that, and we just recorded an entire episode basically on this that's going to be released, Friday morning?
Friday, yep.
So you can get our full thoughts on that, but my main overall thought is no surprises, again, in my opinion. The cases go on in all three states, and in all three states, all the decisions so far has been that each court believes that they are the proper venue, and we'll see if that changes in Pickens County in South Carolina, but the beat goes on. A lot of the other stuff that's been argued really doesn't matter. The whole forum shopping, the rush to the court, doesn't matter.
Sure.
Each state, each court thinks that they're the proper venue, and I think that's the status quo for now. So that's really all I have to say about that.
Yep.
And before I talk more about FSU and ACC and Big Ten and expansion stuff, I do want to say I see we have a bunch of Beavs fans. I'm a self-admitted Beaver believer, so it's great having you guys on here. I'm looking for a good Beaver believer shirt. I might be debuting here. I'm hoping to debut it this month, definitely before the season starts. So I'm glad you guys are here, and I see we got our Knowles fans here. So I'm just going to get right into it.
Okay.
And again, if you're on War Chant, you probably saw Genetics kind of previewing some of this stuff today. Him and I have been discussing some things, kind of off the record, kind of back channeling some stuff. But I want to let you guys know what I've heard. So I work in the kind of intersection of government and higher learning. I made some connections at Penn State during COVID times when things were a little bit more serious than just football. And I've kept those connections. I've kept in contact with them. And one of my best contacts at Penn State, I spoke with him on Monday. Now, I'll tell you, we spoke for 20 minutes and 80% of our conversation was about Penn State and how the team was going to do. Because first and foremost, we're both Penn State fans.
Sure.
Okay, so, I'm a Penn State homer. I love Penn State. And that's what we talk about mostly.
Yep.
But about 20% of the conversation, we did touch base on what is the latest and greatest with Big Ten expansion, with Florida State. And this person, my contact, he is in the athletic department, very close with the current AD and was close with the past AD. So, he's not maybe in direct meetings, but he's sitting in the room with the guy who's in the meeting. So anyways, just to kind of go over what we're talking about here, he reiterated to me, he said, whatever Paul Feinbaum was saying on, and I think David Jorgensen was kind of alluding to this.
Yeah.
Whatever Paul Feinbaum was saying about Florida State maybe not having a spot in the Big Ten, completely false. It is they will have a spot in the Big Ten. Everybody who's a fan of the show has been a fan. You know that I've been beating that AAU drum and saying it is important to the Big Ten presidents. But here's the deal. All the Big Ten presidents believe that Florida State will be getting AAU status soon. It's not the end-all, be-all. The most important factors are money, TV ratings. But it is important to the Big Ten presidents, and they believe that Florida State will be an AAU member soon, so it's not a concern. And in fact, the Big Ten presidents are the largest voting bloc within the AAU, and if they want you in the AAU, see Miami, see Notre Dame, you're going to get an invite and be a member, as long as you meet the criteria, and Florida State is very close to meeting that criteria. So that's not a problem. Now, could Florida State decide to go to the SEC and get an invite to the SEC? Absolutely, that could happen. I don't have any connections with Florida State. I don't know what their conversations are.
Right.
So I can't speak to that, whether they would get an invite from the SEC. But I do know it's basically a foregone conclusion that they have a spot in the Big Ten. Okay. So, if you're a Noles fan and you want them in the Big Ten, they've got a spot in the Big Ten. You can rest assured that. Now, what's the holdup right now? AAU membership and academics are not the holdup. It's timing. Okay. The Big Ten, they're not in a rush. They want Florida State, but they're not in a rush.
Yeah.
Well, as our Noles fans know, Florida State wants to get out of the ACC yesterday, okay, or as of last August, their one filing they tried to. So Florida State is in a really big rush. The Big Ten, they're willing to just kind of sit back and say, hey, you guys figure out your legal problems. We will accept you. We have a spot for you when you get all that figured out. But they're not necessarily in a rush. So what was kind of proposed to me is there may be a situation where Florida State announces they're going to leave, but maybe the rights are still up in the air. Mm-hmm. And maybe, there's a year or two where Florida State kind of is almost acting as an independent, coming up with their own schedule, maybe scheduling some games with the Big Ten, maybe still playing games with the ACC. There may be a period there where there's some unknown and uncertainty, kind of like I think Genetics has mentioned a bridge period. That could very well happen because right now the Big Ten, they don't want to take on a headache. They don't want to take on legal problems.
Sure.
They want Florida State to be free and clear when they invite them and accept them.
Yep.
So that's a big thing. So really, it's not anything about AAU, it's timing, okay? So while we were talking about that was the big question I asked him, okay? He just happened to throw out some stuff, and I went back and I asked him to make sure he was cool with me sharing this because I didn't want to speak out of turn.
Right.
We talked about some North Carolina issues, okay? Because this person, again, he had connections with the previous AD and when the previous Big Ten commissioner, Kevin Warren, was in place. And what he's always told me in the past was that North Carolina was the crown jewel of the next phase of the Big Ten's expansion. And that was Kevin Warren's plan. It was a plan all along. They wanted to go down the I-95 corridor, expand that way, and UNC was what they want. After they got Florida State, UNC was the next thing they wanted. Well, what he's telling me now is basically it's a kind of a well-known, a poorly kept secret within the Big Ten. All the ADs are basically agreeing that Florida or North Carolina is off the table. It's just not worth the headache. Since Kevin Warren left, there's a whole bunch. So we have a new commissioner and a whole bunch of new presidents. So the thought processes have changed a bit. The new commissioner is just focused on your national TV rankings right now and how much value you bring right now to the deal. And some of the newer presidents, they don't have that desire to go and pick up North Carolina. Add to that the political situation that we've covered with the Board of Governors. The Big Ten, now, if North Carolina just left the ACC tomorrow and wanted to join the Big Ten, I think they would take them, probably, most likely. But the Big Ten is not going to go begging to them, and they're not going to entertain, apparently this is what the ADs are talking about amongst themselves, they're not going to entertain a package deal with North Carolina State or anything like that. They have no interest in that. They have no interest in further headaches. To them, North Carolina is not worth those kind of headaches,
right,
at least right now. So what he told me is, for now, North Carolina is completely off the table. There's one other piece of kind of juicy news that he threw in here. I didn't even tell you about this yet.
Well, you've said the two things I know. Now you're juicing it up.
So this was a little, and
I'm a dweller all of a sudden.
I wasn't going to talk about it because it's just a little bit. It's more rumor and gossip a little bit. But
that's what everybody does.
I know, but it comes from a good source. So what he said,
but we're better than that.
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
So what
you're better than that, Steve.
The conventional wisdom. No, I'm not. the conventional wisdom, because I think it's interesting, and I don't know if this will happen or not, but I think it's important to just kind of put it in the conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
The conventional wisdom now, with all this Board of Governors stuff, is that the ACC is going to stick together. The Board of Governors' main goal is not to find the best landing spot for UNC or North Carolina State. It's to have the best situation for all of at least the public universities in the state of North Carolina, but also some of the private. They're all one big ecosystem.
Gotcha.
So that is their aim right now. They would rather keep the thing together, and they have the decision makers at North Carolina, at UNC, may want to leave and go to the SEC. They may want to leave and go to the Big Ten. But at the end of the day, the Board of Governors is really what controls all of that. So Big Ten ADs, they feel like, at least for this round, now we'll see what happens 5, 6, 10 years from now.
Right.
But in this round, the ACC is going to survive, and they're basically putting all of their eggs in one basket, which is the state of North Carolina. So, which leads me to this. Apparently, the Board of Governors is putting pressure on, or suggesting to, the North Carolina Board of Governors is suggesting to the ACC that they should consider adding ECU to the conference if there is a few teams that leave. So if we see like a Florida State, Clemson, Miami leave, that would be basically that would increase the chances of North Carolina State staying in
for sure,
because then all of their interests are covered under one entity. So I thought that was interesting. Then again, that's just like a rumor. Like, he's saying that's the word on the street, is that the Board of Governors wants the ACC to invite ECU.
Well, and we did a whole episode maybe 2 months ago now on the difference between the governors and the trustees. The governors of the educational system of the state of North Carolina. Their view of things are different, and you've seen some of this in the press, than what the trustee chairman of UNC or any university, but specifically in this case UNC, is saying. Well, the Board of Governors has control over the Board of Trustees. Now, there's a political issue there. There's legislation or legislators that can get involved and all that kind of jazz. I'm not going down the politics of it. But that makes complete sense in terms of adding yet another North Carolina school to this. It strengthens that argument. It strengthens their base. It's everything that would make sense about this. And when you say that, I go, wow. When you kind of connect some dots, that actually kind of makes some sense.
And that's the thing, is there's been these unconnected dots for a while now. There's been like kind of silence out of, like, when, for a while there was, hey, when's the UNC shoe going to drop? When are they going to, and everything has gone quiet. And I think the reason why, based on what I'm being told, is the Board of Governors has basically put it out there to the Big Ten, to the SEC, to everybody, hey, we are keeping North Carolina together, and really,
for sure,
and these schools being together in one conference from their perspective, because a lot of the Board of Governor members are also politicians or they're connected to legislature. It's so important to the North Carolina economy for all of those to be strong. You have all these ACC championships in the state and all of those things. So that's their priority right now. And so from his perspective and from what I understand of the Big Ten, is that North Carolina, for now, this round, is completely, UNC is off the table for expansion.
I have a couple comments.
Okay.
I'm going to bring up some commenters real quick, and then I'll give you my comments.
All right.
Squeeze Money just named the new ACC conference as the All-Carolina Conference. I love it. You've seen some people now saying they're the All-Coast Conference because they've went to the West Coast now. But what you're saying maybe is the All-Carolina Conference, or at least the majority of them. But I like that. That's a good spin. Heard that here first, I think, from Squeeze Money. And then also that college football guy saying ECU and Appy State, and that was kind of in the back of my mind too, was kind of Appy State. I don't think it's an all or nothing thing. But yeah, I know we usually have a guy that is on that is an ECU fan. At least he's got the little pirate symbol. I can't remember his name.
I can't either.
I'm pretty sure.
I was hoping we'd see him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when he heard that, he would have chimed in. But maybe he'll see this after the fact. But yeah, so my first thoughts. I want to go back to FSU real quick first and what you said about FSU. And I want to be really clear here because I think people get all worked up about this. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is the Big Ten will, if not right away, pretty soon thereafter, have an invitation ready for FSU.
Yes, but maybe not at the same time.
Right. So timing might be a little bit off, but the stars are aligning in that an invitation will be coming eventually for FSU.
And yes, and they've been made aware that they know they have that invitation.
Okay, so you're saying that they even know.
Yes.
Through back channels.
The ADs in the Big Ten are already in discussions with the AD at Florida State
of
scheduling and all that kind of travel and all that kind of stuff already.
Well, I appreciate you clearing that up. And then also, that doesn't mean on the shoe being on the other foot, the SEC maybe isn't doing the same thing. They might get the invite from them, and it's up to FSU to determine if they're getting 2 or 3 invites. You've heard all this Big 12 mumbo jumbo. I'm not going to get into that because I think it's bunk if there's a Big 10 invite sitting on the table. But if there is the SEC invitation and there's a Big 10 invitation, Steve is not saying right now that FSU is going to the Big 10.
Right.
He is saying there's an invitation awaiting FSU, and there is things happening back channels right now. So I want to make that very clear. He's not saying it will happen, but he is saying the invitation is
the groundwork
there.
is laid.
His groundwork is laid. So I just want to be clear on that because people they can read different things about what you say. The UNC thing, again, isn't surprising, and it makes sense. Why would a Big Ten or even an SEC? I mean, we've said multiple times, the SEC is pretty freaking happy being where they are. Why would either of these want to get into a situation in the state of North Carolina that has baggage attached to it? They don't need that. They don't want that. Now, if UNC can become free and clear, different story. But that's not where it's at. So why are we spending our time on this when we can spend our time on different things? I also then would parlay that with what you're saying in terms of they're looking at today's media value. They're not looking for necessarily 10 years down the road what could happen to these schools and all that. We've done some comments like Georgia Tech might be fun and Miami might be fun. If they're looking at today, Junior, those schools they're not looking at them probably.
And that's specifically the new commissioner's focus. So that is a change. The previous commissioner, Kevin Warren, was looking 10 years in the future and wanted to make the Big Ten into a mini NFL, and he had a certain way to do it. But the new commissioner is really focused on today's TV value, what they can get in just a few years when they're going to negotiate their next media deal.
Understood. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on some things because I know how things can get heard sometimes. And we have some people giving you a lot of thank yous, some great insights, all that kind of stuff. So good stuff, Steve. Thanks for doing that.
You got a little bit more here on the same topic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, wasn't done. So
oh my gracious. Yeah. We might as well scratch the rest of the topics. This is good stuff.
That college football guy, Bill, he asked us, what he keeps thinking of is if FSU goes to the Big Ten, who would be the 20th school? Or are they open the door for Notre Dame? So I have kind of two-part answer to that.
Okay.
So first of all,
did you preface this with Bill? Did you prep
no,
that?
Not at all.
Bill knows look at this. Bill knows what.
Well, I think that's on everybody's mind. Okay. I know Genetics has talked about that a lot. He's done a lot of stuff on Twitter and a lot of stuff on War Chant is who's the 20th team.
Okay. I'll shut up. You keep going.
Yeah. So what my contact said is the Big Ten is not in a rush to identify that 20th team. He said, and this goes into the timing issue. They're not in a rush to add Florida State, but they know they want to add Florida State.
Sure.
They're also not in a rush to add the 20th team, and they don't know who they want. So they're going to take their time on that. And what I was told was there may be, again, we talked about a bridge period, where Florida State is out of the ACC. They know they're going to the Big Ten, but maybe they don't start playing a traditional Big Ten schedule, maybe for a year or two, maybe like the 25 and 26 football seasons, where they do some other kind of independent or hybrid schedule or something like that. And maybe that's kind of where the SEC and the Big 12 conversation is coming from, because maybe Florida State's looking at their options and they're like, well, the Big Ten won't take us now. What are our other options? Right. So that was mentioned to me. And then the other thing that was mentioned is the 20th school, the Big Ten wants to look national, okay? They want to, like, who's going to bring the most value at the national level? So could that mean they look at Clemson? Yes, they are looking at Clemson. They are considering Clemson. I know for a fact they're considering Clemson, but they have not decided for sure that Clemson is the team. They're a possibility. And Clemson sees themselves, in their discussions with the Big Ten, they see themselves as a national program, not just a regional program.
Right.
So Clemson, possibility. Notre Dame, yes, Big Ten would love to get Notre Dame. I think just the feeling right now is that Notre Dame has what they want and they're not ready.
Nope.
Maybe if we give it another 3 or 4 more years, we'll see what happens with that. Could they be a possibility? Yes. And some people keep asking about Texas A&M. I know Genetics is talking about. I have never heard. My contact has never mentioned Texas A&M.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing: it's likely that different ADs across the Big Ten probably have different kind of parts of the puzzle and have different contacts they reach out to. So, my connections at Penn State, they have not mentioned Texas A&M, but he doesn't know who the 20th school is going to be, other than they're kind of going. They've eliminated UNC. They've kind of gone away from that regional approach of going down the East Coast that Kevin Warren wanted to do, and they're looking for a 20th school that's a national draw, that can draw national television ratings and media value right away from day one. So that leaves open a lot of possibilities.
Absolutely.
And I wish I had a better, hey, this is who they're looking at, but it's wide open right now.
Well, but let's look at, and we're going to get to this later on. We're going to get to our 64 team draft that we did. But let's look at what I did in the West. I mean, I had Nebraska with Texas. So if you're looking at that central, you're hearing a lot of the eastern side, but not so much from the Midwest. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, because I mean, Nebraska may be all in on Tech. Well, they all probably would love Texas A&M.
Yes,
but when you the further west you go, the more you're more in line with.
I'm sure Nebraska would love to get back into the state of Texas and recruiting and stuff. David Jorgensen says he thinks it might be Buffalo.
Could be. I just want to say, Christopher G., I don't know if you saw our draft, but he says Vegas is starting to look attractive for the power conferences, and I took them in my draft because I agree. I think Vegas, I mean, they are shooting up the board. I'm not talking about UNLV's football program today. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about Vegas.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, well, it's going to take time to
Everybody
get
wants to
them
be in
there.
Vegas.
Everybody wants to be there.
Big 12 is having their.
I mean, as our buddy said, he wants us at the Bellagio right now. We're not freaking there. We're letting everybody down. So yes, what else do you got? You want to go right into the out of conference stuff?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We can go right in. We can kind of just take a look at these last few comments and we can roll into that out of conference.
Okay, so we've got good stuff. We've got, you mentioned the Buffalo. I mentioned Vegas. Greg asks, oh, where are my Cougs going to end up? Frustrated doesn't even come close to how Wazoo fans feel. We definitely can understand that. We've been talking about both the Beavs and the Cougs for a long time. Just did an episode on that. When did we drop that? Yesterday?
Yeah, a couple days.
Monday? I don't know. Just did an episode on that. We kind of talk about that and answer that. If you didn't see that episode, Greg, check it out. We here on the mountain have been saying for quite some time, we think some sort of a merger and or joining of the Mountain West and the Beavs and the Cougs is by far the most likely. But we'll wait and see. I think they are clearly right now, all options are on the table. They keep saying that. But as we heard from President Schultz, early 25, they want to have something figured out. And I am going to talk about a little bit of that when we get to the media day piece, because Commissioner Navarez with the Mountain West actually talked a little bit about the Beavers and the Cougars. So I'll give you that little nugget and make you hold on to that for a little bit, because we're going to out of conference schedules.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So we're going to talk about, so now that we've gotten past all the fun, the rumors and all that kind of stuff, the expansion news, I do want to talk about, we're really starting to get closer and closer to the season.
Yeah.
We want to focus on this season and all the great football that's going to be played this year. So we're going to talk about the Big Ten's out-of-conference schedule.
Yep.
I have my top 10 games here in the Big Ten, out-of-conference games. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. We'll start from week 1.
So these aren't ranked 1 to 10, but you're going to start with week 1 and just kind of lay out as the season goes on. As we go, you're going to say these. If I had to pick a top 10, these are them.
Yes, and the thing with the Big Ten schedule, the way they have things set up is it's very front-loaded. The first 3 weeks are all their out-of-conference games. So right away, week 1, LSU at USC. USC's the home teams, but this game's going to be in Vegas. Just a fantastic. Obviously, USC is a new member. Both LSU and USC, tons of talent.
Yeah.
National programs had kind of disappointing team results last year.
Yep.
I would say so. This is a great way for both teams to kind of get the season started. Either one, a big win in this game would be huge for them. For not necessarily their chances of winning their conference, but for their playoff hopes, at the end of the year, building that resume. So LSU, USC. So also in week 1, Penn State going to West Virginia. Okay. To me, again, I'm a Penn State fan, so obviously I'm focused on this. But I think, a West Virginia team who's finished the season strong last year could make some noise in the Big 12. It's a good... also for Penn State, if they can go and they can get this win, it doesn't really matter to how they're going to do in the conference this year.
Sure,
they still got to go through Ohio State to win the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But if they have another 10-2 type season, maybe 11-1 season, a win here on the road, West Virginia to start is a great kind of way to start their resume and make that case for the college football playoff later. So also in week 1, and some people may be surprised by this game. I don't think you will.
No.
Fresno State at Michigan in the Big House.
I wore this short because you're going to pick this game.
There you go. Fresno State at Michigan, week 1. Here's the thing. Michigan, one of the greatest programs of all time, coming off of a national championship. They have a fantastic defense. They lost a lot of players to the NFL.
Yes.
But they've kept a lot of really good defensive players, okay? But they lost their starting quarterback. They lost their coach, Jim Harbaugh. They do, Sharon Moore, he was kind of he was the assistant head coach last year, and he was the de facto head coach for part of the season while Harbaugh was having his various suspensions and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not a completely new coaching staff or anything, but it is starting new. I have a feeling like last year they started kind of slow with some of the things going on. I could see Michigan starting slow again.
Yeah.
I don't know if Fresno has quite the firepower to pull off an upset against that Michigan defense, but just this is going to give us a good indicator of what Michigan has this year, what they look like. This could be early warning signs, or if they come out and absolutely destroy Fresno, it's business as usual for Michigan. Whatever. But I think this is a great opportunity. I'm the Big Ten guy, you're the Mountain West guy, but from Fresno's perspective, they don't have to win this game, but if they can look good, put a good show on, make a good appearance, be respectable, that could be huge for their college football playoff hopes later.
3 things.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Anytime. Anywhere.
There you go.
Let's do it.
That's the Bulldogs motto. So 3 games, kind of weird games, honestly. Weird matchups we don't see, but right off the bat, week 1, some cool out-of-conference games. So let's move to week 2. Texas at Michigan.
Ooh.
So Texas, you got the Longhorns, one of the hottest teams in the country, college football playoff team last year. They got 2 stud quarterbacks, loaded roster. One of the top picks to possibly win the SEC, go to the playoff, maybe win a national championship game. They're coming week 2 into the Big House. So Michigan gets that little test of Fresno at the beginning. And then week 2, they got Texas Longhorns visiting them right away. Again, this is going to tell us a lot about both teams.
Yes.
Either team, they could lose this game and go and win their conference, and they're sitting pretty.
Yep.
But I think this will tell us a lot about each team early in the season.
Yeah.
So the next game, Iowa State and Iowa. This
you already picked this game too.
Yes. This game's always crazy. These 2 teams, they hate each other, interstate rivals. It's always a fun game, and it's just I now I can't remember there's a name of this game.
David could probably tell us.
Yeah, it has a nickname. I can't remember what it is right now, but this game is always a good game. It's a good way to start the season. It's just a lot of fun. really, this game again will tell us. I think this game will tell us nothing about the teams and their chances for success in their own conference. But it's just going to be fun to watch. And these guys hate each other, and they're going to beat the crap out of each other.
That's the kind of fun football you want to watch.
Yeah. So, my next game, okay, and David Jorgensen and some of our other fans, I know they're looking forward to this. Still in week 2, Colorado visits Nebraska. So the team that's getting all the hype in the world, Neon Dion, primetime head coach, traveling into Nebraska. Nothing fancy or flashy about Nebraska. I am a Matt Rule believer. I think he's already doing some really good things with that program. I'm sure there were people that weren't happy. They thought maybe they would win more games last year. Well, the thing is, last year they just had abysmal quarterback play.
Yeah.
But Matt Rule, always in his first year, there's always like just kind of that turnaround period. And in the second year going forward is really where you start to see the results. And I think we're going to see that this year. Again, this is the team that's getting all the national hype.
Yes.
Who may not be good at all versus a team that's really not getting any national hype. Who I think has a chance to maybe be in the Big Ten championship game this year and compete for a playoff spot. So fantastic game right out of the bat. Week 2, Colorado, Nebraska. I'm looking forward to it.
So David knew it, and he actually told us this. Maybe it was last week or 2 weeks ago.
Cyhawk, yes, yeah. I couldn't remember. It's a fantastic game though every year.
Yep.
Okay, so right after that, I mean, those first 2 weeks, those are some pretty awesome games, crazy matchups, some that go on every year, and some are just new we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Well, guess what's coming next? Week 3, Alabama visiting Wisconsin. 2 historic programs. Alabama coming to Camp Randall Stadium.
Yeah.
Huge game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Alabama, the first year without Nick Saban. DeBoer has come in there right away. He's recruiting well. He's retained. They lost some players, but he's retained a good part of that roster. He's got one of the top recruiting classes coming in. He got some good transfers.
Oh yeah,
they're going to be a powerhouse again. But are they going to have a hiccup? Do they just keep on rolling down the train, rolling down the tracks, or is there some bumps in the road? I think this is a good test for them. We can see in Wisconsin. A great historic program, Camp Randall Stadium. Luke Fickell, I believe in him long term, but they had some issues last year. This could be a test for them. If they could upset Alabama, I think that would be huge. If Alabama comes in and blows out Wisconsin, I think that could spell a lot of trouble for Luke Fickell and that team this year. So we'll see how that goes. I'm really interested in that. And then also week 3 for our Beaver fans. I guess we're not supposed to call it the Civil War anymore.
Yeah, just
border
fine.
war, whatever.
Yeah,
Civil War. Oregon at Oregon State, and I know I think it was JEH earlier was saying that he wants Oregon to go 1-11 this year.
Right.
So hey, this is a good way. Week 3, if you want to make them go 1-11, you got to knock them off.
He wants them to beat Michigan State.
Okay, yeah,
that's it.
The only one, yeah. So week 3, Oregon State, and I just want to say again, I'm a big supporter of the Beavs and the Cougs. I think they got totally screwed. I really hope for them for their future. I think they have great fan bases. They're committed to winning and having good programs. And so I am so thankful, just as a college football fan, that these games are going to continue. So in week 3, we have the Civil War, and then we also have the Apple Cup.
Yeah.
Washington State at Washington. Great ways to start the season, I think. Really happy that those games are continuing, and I'm ready to watch them. And those are the 2 games that kind of finish that early, the first 3 weeks,
right?
Kind of cap off that out of conference schedule.
I'm anxious for that game, the Washington State game. I'm very anxious for. I mean, we know what happened with Oregon State. We know what happened, or not what happened, but where Oregon is at right now. I hope that's a close game for the Beavers.
Yeah.
I am interested though in the Apple Cup this year. I think this could be an interest. One of them's neutral. I think this is the neutral site, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure the Apple Cup's a neutral
Maybe
site.
Washington's listed as the home team, but I don't know.
It's not. I think it's a neutral field.
That would be cool.
It's at.
Is it where the
NFL, whatever, Seahawks play? I'm 99% sure.
Someone in the chat will tell us.
It's where the Seahawks play, which I don't know the name of the damn stadium, but I'm pretty sure that's where that game's at.
Well, even better. I hope it gets all the good national attention and billing. Both of those games really should be getting national attention. And then after week 3, we have Big Ten schedule, Big Ten week after Big Ten after Big Ten game. Just keep on going until we get to week 14. USC hosts its traditional game against Notre Dame. Week 14. To me, This is one of the bigger. I mean, it's always a big game every year. These are not, even when both teams suck. It's a great, it's a big game. It's a national. Yeah, Squeeze Money says Apple Cup is neutral. This is always a national game. Both programs have lots of national attention. But Notre Dame, they remained independent. This new era of a 12-team playoff. USC, there's huge stakes for both of these programs. USC coming to the Big Ten. I think it's going to be a hard job. It's going to be really hard for USC to come in and win the Big Ten in the first year.
Yeah.
But can they be the second, third, or maybe a fourth place team with a win over Notre Dame to kind of put that call? I think both of these teams, both of these programs could use this win to put together their college football playoff resume.
Yeah.
I think it'll be very important. The winner of this game, I think, very likely will be in the college football playoff. And the loser probably on the outside looking in.
I have a couple of those in Week 14 as well with the Mountain West, that it could be a win and you're in type of scenario. It's interesting to see some of these Week 14 games be these out of conference, pretty high level out of conference games. I really like it. I'm liking this Week 14 slate that we have.
Right, and for Notre Dame, they don't play in a championship game.
Right.
So this could be their last opportunity to really make a national impression on the national fans and the committee.
Yeah, and they're playing there at USC, and I would be remiss not to say that we just recorded another video about home field advantage in the Big Ten. We'll get it out next week, and people might be a little surprised where USC is at on that list, Steve.
I think there's going to be some surprises in there. Yeah. I really tried to look at it from a numbers perspective of what who had the best home field advantage in terms of the point spread. How can it affect a game? And I agree with you. There'll be surprises at USC, and I think there's some other surprises. People should check that video out.
There's definitely a couple surprises on that video. We'll get that. Steve does his home field advantage Big Ten list. We'll get that out next week. We're looking to, obviously we're gearing up for previews with the teams, but we also want to have some fun. And you do kind of the home field advantage. You kind of tie that into some of your potential predictions into the future and how that may play out with some of the spreads and how that might work.
Yep. So JH says the Civil War is in Corvallis, Apple Cup, and Seahawks Stadium.
Lumen. That's
Lumen
it.
Field. There's some corporate sponsor crap. And Chris is here. That's Chris from Trailhead.
That is. Right? Cheers, Chris.
Welcome, Chris.
Chris, you're just in time for some Mountain West goodness. So let's get to it. I'm going to talk media days first. So talk a little bit about the pack in here as well, because the Commissioner Navarro has talked about that. So let's talk about media days. And I know we'll have some slides here in a minute. I'm not quite ready for those yet, Mr. Producer. But if they're up, that's fine too. So official kickoff to the season is the media days in Las Vegas. The Circa Resort. I've seen some pictures. It looks awesome. Again, if we couldn't be at the Bellagio to be in Vegas, I'd be okay with being at Circa. This is a 2-day event that they're doing over there. They have interviews, all kinds of stuff on the Mountain West Network, which is either on an app, on your app, or online. Today was a bunch of interviews with the players. Tomorrow's a bunch of interviews with coaches. So it's really good stuff. I'll be waiting to see some of the reporting. I follow several people that obviously are there and stuff. And I do want to comment on some things that Commissioner Gloria Navarro said today, kind of kicking it off. She gave out some information. One of those pieces was this agreement with the PAC and the Mountain West. She said that there is mutual interest between the two parties to extend this scheduling agreement into 2025, and that will likely be finalized this season in 2024. So in the next 5 to 6 months, you're probably going to hear about this extension. Steve and I have said from the very beginning, very likely that was going to happen. And Gloria Navarro is now saying, yes, both sides thinks they would like to extend at this point. Also, in terms of talking about media rights, they're going to be taking theirs to market next year in 2025. Remember, they end in June of 26, but they'll market those next year. So really looking for a great year this year coming out of the Mountain West. I like the scheduling agreement. I like the things that they're building there. So they're looking to take this to market. She didn't say exactly when. I would guess probably summer of next year. So they have time to figure that all out. So that's not going to be too far away. And then her quote of the day here, Steve, that I wrote down, she says, "We intend to be a top 5 FBS conference." I replied to someone there, you could argue, as I do, they already are a top 5 FBS conference. I know that won't really appease some of the AAC and maybe the Sun Belt fans, but definitely a strong argument there, and that is their goal, to continue to grow this conference.
I have to interrupt you for some breaking news.
Breaking news.
Okay, so we have Bill here. Looks like maybe he's a Boise fan.
Yes.
He says Jonah Dalmas, the Boise kicker, is scheduled to attempt a 65-yard field goal over the Circa pool.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll show that on the Mountain West Network, or at least we'll get some sort of video on X or somewhere from that. I'm sure there will be some sort of video of that. That's awesome. And that's where I want to go to next. We'll put up our first slide, and it is detailing out all of the coaches and players that are at the media days for every team. So clearly, Jonah Dalmas is there because he's going to be doing this kick, and that's fantastic. And I got to say, I'm sure all conferences do stuff like this, but the Mountain West finds fun ways just to kind of promote their players, promote their conference. It's a lot of fun. So again, up on the screen, you're going to see all the head coaches are there. I'll just point out Utah State. Obviously, last week we talked about what's going on there with their head coach, Blake Anderson. So Nate Drayling is going to be there representing. He is the interim. He was named interim, so he's the head coach right now. I also found it interesting there. They have Spencer Petras. So we talked a lot recently over the last couple months about that quarterback room. Their 2 main starters from last year, they're out because they bring in some guys. Not 100% sure who was going to be the starter, but hey, Petras is at the media that day. Pretty sure he's going to be their starter next year. I don't think that's too much of a surprise. We kind of thought it was going to be Spencer, but that pretty much confirms he is definitely probably going to be their starter next year. The other thing that kind of stood out to me was Fresno. They take Malik Sherrod, not Mikey Keene, to media days. So that was interesting. Maybe there was some conflicts or something. I don't really know. But I thought for sure having Mikey being kind of the number 1 quarterback, when you look at the power rankings, these preseason rankings that everybody's doing, Mikey's he's almost always the number 1 quarterback. And he's not down there at the media days. But yeah, and of course my Cowboys took Harrison Whaley, saw a picture of him in the pool. Maybe he was just waiting in the pool for that football to go flying over his head.
He's probably doing that thing where the football players, they jump out of the pool onto the...
He was just kind of like, I'm in the pool.
Okay, all right.
He was looking like a football player in the pool.
Gotcha, okay.
Anyway, all right. So then, of course, they do preseason rankings for all of this kind of stuff. So we'll go through these pretty quick, but they do the media rankings. That's our second slide to come up here. No surprise here. Boise State media has as number 1. We have not done our previews yet here on the Big Mountain. We're going to get to them here in a couple weeks, but Boise's number 1. They have UNLV at number 2 and Fresno State at number 3. Boise received 38 first place votes. UNLV, Fresno State, 4 each, and they are very close there for second, so that's not surprising that your point totals here between the Rebels and the Bulldogs are extremely close. So, look, we just got a David Jurgensen $5 bottle of water.
Yeah, super chat. He's always taking care of us. So when we go to the Bellagio, we can buy a 4-ounce bottle of water.
Yes.
We're going to have to enjoy it.
Yes. Yeah, I'll take one little sip and you can take one little sip.
That's all we're going to be able to afford.
That's fantastic.
We'll just have to gamble a lot and get the free drinks on the floor. Hopefully.
Yes. Well, thank you, David, for the super chat. You're always helping us out with that, and we really do appreciate it. So I'll move forward here. You'll see the whole list. I'm going to do previews. I'm not going to focus on too much of those. They also put out their media's offense, first team offense. The one change here that really stood out to me, you've seen a lot of Harrison Whaley in terms of being kind of the top 2 running backs, Genty and Whaley. Here they've got Sherrod as being there with Genty. So the media does not have Harrison there as one of the top running backs. And I get it. When you look at the stats, it's kind of 50-50. My homerism with the Pokes would say you should have Harrison there. I just think he has greater upside. I think Sherrod's a solid back, but I think that explosive play comes from Harrison Whaley. And most of the preseason rankings and things that I've seen have had Harrison Whaley there. So I don't know. The media likes Fresno, I guess.
Did correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Whaley miss a bunch of games last season?
He missed several games.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
he did miss several games.
Might have just been they took a look at the stats from last year, returning production, and yeah.
Yeah, so the other one then, the last one I got is just for the defense. We'll throw that up real quick. I went over some of these. I think we used, was it Athlon before? I think they had it. For the most part, very similar types of stuff. You'll see a lot.
Yeah, my battery's very low.
Okay, so
I think we're back.
we're sorry, guys. We're having some technical difficulties. We're having some power issues here. So just bear with us. We think we're back up and transmitting. I think we.
Yeah, look, we're back.
All right, awesome.
Sorry, there's a delay between being live and what we're actually saying.
Yeah.
So I'll stop looking at my stupid phone, and we'll get right back at it. So apologize for that. But yes, we have a little bit of electrical issues here. So I think we got through that. So I'm ready to move on to the Big Ten out of conference. No, I'm sorry. Before we go to the Big Ten out of conference, we got our a big reveal that we have to do,
let's
Steve.
do that.
We got to do the reveal. Make sure we can get it in while we still have
we have
electricity
some
going
electricity.
on here. So big reveal. Steve and I were able to sit down with an athletic director of athletics, with a Mountain West Conference athletic director yesterday. We're going to get it posted tomorrow. And I gave them a hint with my shirt, Steve.
Oh,
I gave them a hint. It is the Fresno State Bulldogs' brand new, just named Director of Athletics, Garrett Klassy. So it was a fantastic interview.
it was great. I loved every minute of it. He's a great guy.
Klassy. I said it wrong.
He's
It's Klassy.
Yes, he's keeping it classy now in Fresno State. And it was a great interview. And he just had his introductory press conference recently. He isn't even in the job full time, and he took his time, gave us about 30 minutes on the big mountain to talk to us and our mountain dwellers. So we really appreciate it. It was great, and I look forward to having him on again.
Yeah, I've talked to him actually several times since. Well, I've not talked. I have been texting with him several times since. He actually hasn't even officially started yet in Fresno State. Officially, he starts later this month. He was actually down in Houston, which is where he's coming from. Just went through the hurricane down there. Fortunately, they got through that okay. And yeah, it was a phenomenal interview. We talk about just kind of him moving to Fresno State. We talk a little bit about the Bulldogs, and you ask him about the Michigan game. We're going to go out. Okay, so we're going to lose you guys again, but it was a great interview. Let us see if we can't get our computer booted up here a little bit better, and we're going to try to come back and do the out of conference rankings for the Mountain West. Give us just a minute or two. We're going to see what happens here. Hopefully we get this sucker booted up. So hang on, guys. We'll be right back. Mountain West OOC stuff next week. And we apologize for that. We thank Bill for being on. We were going to talk the draft, but we apologize for our technical issues. We'll see what we can try to get back to this stuff next week. And I got to wrap up because I'm going to lose power. So, hey, we'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.